Darlene Cavalier is an amazing powerhouse who is behind SciStarter. I call it international, but the main SciStarter project that has been around for a number of years. Formerly, she's based in the southwest of the United States, lives in the Northeast, and has been amazing at supporting us to figure out how to do this in the Australian context, but more generally at building communities, partnerships, networks, and the very presence of SciStarter, particularly in the United States, with a very strong team behind her, particularly of technical support. And so I'm going to turn it over to Darlene. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you all can see what I see. Let's get to slideshow. I'm Darlene Cavalier, professor of practice at Arizona State University, and also the founder of SciStarter. And I see that Emma Giles, who's our managing director, is also tuning in to learn a little bit more about this program too. So, give you a little overview. SciStarter is a website that basically connects people who want to get involved in citizen science, whether they're curious or concerned about something, to thousands of projects that need their help. That's the ecosystem. It's a lot of stuff up there, but basically what it's saying is that we're more than a database. So we know that scientists and project leaders and researchers, they often struggle to recruit participants, to connect directly with them. They might be looking for particular types of people, geographically located, special skills, wherever it might be, particular interests. Maybe they're already gardeners or amateur astronomers, or maybe they own dogs. Wherever it might be, we help them find the right, kind of efficiently recruit participants for their research. And to do that, we have to partner with a lot of different organizations. So you'll hear in a little bit how we partner with libraries in the United States. Libraries are extremely accessible, and we work with more than 1,000 libraries who are community hubs for citizen science. So that's a particular way of reaching people based in geographic locations that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach. I'll explain more about that in a little bit. We have a whole communications strategy. This is a blog. This is a newsletter that reaches over 100,000 people. This is a podcast, social media strategies. Emma hosts a SciStarter Live event every Tuesday. We work with NASA on other types of virtual events. So lots and lots of work to communicate out what we're learning, but also opportunities to engage. We have trainings that have been extremely helpful, even for us to understand where people get confused, where they stop doing things, or where they want to keep on moving. So doing the foundations of citizen science, very basic understanding. This is what citizen science is. You do 2 projects in the process. From there, that's a prereq, but you have an option to maybe do some professional development as a librarian, or if you're an educator, there's a formal education citizen science in the classroom training. There's one for people who want to learn more about data or data ethics. So lots of different trainings that we have there. And then we also have analytics, very strong analytics that help support researchers, facilitators, people who study the field, and even individuals. So we have APIs that are connected to hundreds of projects that are registered on SciStarter, so that people can track their engagement in different projects across apps and across websites. So you can imagine taking all that together and being able to look at the landscape of opportunities that exist for people to get involved in projects, where people are looking for things, what they're looking for, and then how frequently people get involved in what types of projects. So embedded assessments come into play to start to learn more about science learning, identity, confidence, motivation, all kinds of neat things there too. And lots of papers have been published because of the data coming from SciStarter. I already talked a little bit about the technical support. You can see the URL there. I think these slides will be shared out later. All the training materials and modules. These are online, open source, Creative Commons licensed training modules. They're developed by instructional designers at Arizona State University, and some of them are also linked to micro accreditation platforms. This is just a neat way to look at some of the analytics that I mentioned before, measuring participation across websites and apps. We work with a lot of partners. There's no way we could do this without partners. And the support and the expertise from you all in Australia, too. It's been very helpful for us to learn. We have a vision. What would SciStarter Australia look like? But that doesn't work unless we have a partner like you all who says, you know, we're going to be patient through this. Here's what we want to see in this, you know, the iframe or the website or this collaboration. So we're learning together. But I think it's, you know, I think it's in a really good place that if you run a project or you know about a project, you'll hear from Jesse and Wendy about very simple steps to add it to SciStarter Australia so that people who are looking for projects to do in Australia can more easily find them, so that you as a project scientist or a researcher can more easily recruit participants, and that all the researchers here can start to look at the patterns of engagement. All the things that I talked about that happen at SciStarter can happen there at SciStarter Australia too. This is just an idea, an example of the library network that I mentioned. Emma really works a lot on this program. And what we found is that working with libraries is very helpful because they also get to loan out the instruments and tools, the manuals, the field guides. They get to host in-person events for people to get to know each other a little bit more. So the act and the experience of being involved in citizen science doesn't feel so socially isolating. You're actually feeling like you're part of a community because you are. But to do that, librarians started asking for a little bit more support, especially during Citizen Science Month, which happens every April, and we aim for a collective 1 million acts of science. An act is just when somebody adds data to a project or they analyze data in a project. And we really surpassed 1 million pretty fast last April. I think it was within 3 weeks. So libraries involved in these programs, they said, you know, we're so overworked. Can you give us some people, or can you give us some training where we can train volunteers that work with us already to help activate this type of programming in our library? And lo and behold, now we have ambassadors. Two cohorts that would total 100. We'll have 200 by the end of the year that are certified, and several hundred more, I think 400 more, that go through the trainings and the quizzes. You know, they pass everything. They have to do an assessment and so forth. But certified ambassadors have background checks, and they have applied for this. They go through orientation and so forth. So you can learn a little bit more about that on the URL that was just on that last slide. But here's what SciStarter Australia looks like. I think you all did such a beautiful job with this. Very easy. Search for projects or add a project, and you can see all the other tools that are available at the top. And I'm going to close with that. And I'm available for questions. I think there's a couple of minutes left for Q&A.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody
Sure.
have questions for Darlene? I mean, I think it is interesting, Darlene, to hear about the libraries, because my intuition is libraries are a good way in. But it is also, you know, we've talked about this before, you know, different cultural spaces, and there's sort of different norms about how things work and how they're organized. And so I just wondered if you might say a little bit more, for example, about the project with the Scouts as another kind of pattern of getting people involved.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great example of how that's an organization. These are the Girl Scouts of the USA, very large organization. And so they wanted to start to introduce and have a badge for citizen science, a think like a citizen scientist journey. Now, they don't want to have to develop all the infrastructure that we have at SciStarter so that the girls can easily and safely find projects to get involved in. And they wanted the analytics. They wanted to know how many Girl Scout councils and troops within those councils and individual girls, and how many times they were active in projects. So that's a lot of layers, but we already have that baked into our system. So that's a great example of how we have a curated portal. Girl Scouts are directed over there. They find a set number of projects that really match the criteria that the Girl Scouts set, and that's projects that can be done within 6 weeks, outdoor STEM, very little instruments that are needed. And that's a 5 or 7 year program that we have going on with them. And it's really nice too, because not only do we just see the projects that they really like to do, but we can also see that even after they got their badge, they continue doing citizen science projects. So Erin Cooper at North Carolina State University, her lab published a paper about that for us to see too. So yeah, I'm hoping that we get some papers out of this work too, and we can see what works and what doesn't work and what we can improve upon there too.
That's fabulous. Yeah, we've got a question from the audience. Sorry, we don't have a roaming, do you want to roam this? Yep. Thank you. We're going to roam, sorry, I can't really.
Hi Darlene, my name's Natasha, you can't see me, but I work for an organisation here that facilitates a lot of volunteering in on-ground nature restoration. I am curious about the data analysis and sharing and utilisation that I don't know much about SciStarter at all, and I'm quite new to this whole space actually, so yeah, curious to know how that works, if SciStarter is a platform for that, or also if there are any uniform tools around making sure the data is, you know, helping people decide what to collect, what's appropriate, what's useful, and then how that feeds into decision making and how it's shared.
Yes. Yeah.
All great questions, yeah.
That I did hear most of that. The decision-making part is the harder part, and that kind of does happen in a black box. So to clarify too, SciStarter is, it's a place where people add their projects. So you don't actually do the project on SciStarter. Very rarely. We'll do that as a favor if somebody has a short-term project and they don't want to use, you know, an existing tool. Atlas of Living Australia, iNaturalist, Zooniverse. Then for whatever reason, they're not able to put their project on these existing, typically free tools that exist there, then we'll develop something for them as a data collection kind of survey that happens, or they're not able to use Esri for some reason. But typically we do encourage people to use existing tools that are just so robust and perfect for that. And we actually work with all those platforms that I just mentioned. We actually work with them, and we have APIs and agreements where they report back to SciStarter how frequently a SciStarter member is engaged in that project. And now that SciStarter member has already agreed to that. They say, yes, I like that, share it, because they want the data. They're actually tracking their own, you know, participation. So what we collect is not the observational data. That's what the project collects. What we collect is a participant kind of validation. How frequently, when, what time, where, how frequently did somebody either add data or analyze data? That's about it. So I don't know if you can, hear me okay. Let's see, is the audience?
Yeah, no, it's all great. Thank you.
Oh.
Wendy, do you have any questions?
Okay, I don't know if I
have
answered
time
your
for one more question. Anything online? Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next. Thanks so much, Darlene.
Thank you.
And Darlene's very accessible via email and so on, and so I encourage you to reach out to SciStarter if you have questions or issues.